Hey everyone, welcome back to Drama or Hum. I'm Aisha from Lahore, Pakistan.
Hi, I'm Mariam from Mumbai, India.
And we are back to reviewing Faraar and Qarz Jaan. Meem Se Mohabbat has ended, so we are on the lookout for a third drama. Please let us know what you would like us to watch and review next as well. Let's get started. Perfect. So I thought Faraar overall was, it was more a follow-up episode, like a top-up episode from last week. I felt like last week a lot happened, and then this week was, just like a follow-up from that. So we got a little bit more on each story. I was hoping that we would get more content, if you know what I mean, but I don't think the
Yeah.
story moved forward that much, for me at least in this episode.
Um, yeah, I think what happened was in the last few episodes, we got a lot of turning points,
Huh,
right?
yeah.
A lot of it's not about the story progressed, but it turned in
Yeah,
directions,
yeah.
right? And in this episode, it didn't turn, it was just moving forward in the same
Huh.
direction. So I think
Yeah.
that's why we felt it didn't give us a lot. It did,
Yeah.
right? Because obviously they did meet Faraz. Then you see Faraz's backstory and his
Yeah.
connection with
QIP and
not
Batish and
QIP,
Mohsin Beg.
Mohsen Beg, which
Yeah.
we didn't know that they had met. So it was interesting to
Exactly.
see
Huh.
that they had met. And then obviously, you now see Fussy a bit more confident, it seems at least, and
Yeah.
you see a new version of
Yeah.
Fussy 2.0, right?
Yeah.
Where he's coming up with these ideas, कि speaker pe dalo, ye karo, wo
Huh.
karo. So I think, it did give us more information. Yes, it didn't have twists and turns
Huh.
like the last few episodes. So I think that's why it felt like, it didn't give us more.
Yeah.
And
I
then
thought
the good thing is they didn't show us extras. I mean, that one conversation, I feel like what your intuition on the mother might be a bit like something is going to happen because they keep making the mother and
yeah.
son talk for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, because
Um,
those scenes don't actually add any value. Like it's not like she's giving him any kind of information. कि,
yeah,
DPO की call आई थी, मुझे भी आई थी. There is nothing, no crumbs in those conversations. Literally सलाम दुआ. Hi,
yeah.
how are you? मैं ठीक हूँ. अच्छा हाँ काम चल रहा है. You know.
It could be two things. Either they want to keep us reminding us that this lady, the girlfriend is there, or
Yeah.
maybe they've paid her for that show and they have to use. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Or then it's something is going to happen there,
हाँ. मुझे
which
लगता
is
है,
why they're building that storyline.
right?
It is a character. Look, you want
No.
to also play sometimes this struggling character, right?
हाँ,
Because it
हाँ.
has its own flavors. So
And also, in a way, they have surprised us and stumped us with this because of this casting. Because we knew it was
yeah,
Ahmed Ali Akbar, we were expecting, this policeman to be like, like a
intellectual.
worthy opponent to, or a
Batish.
worthy competition to Bhaktation and all of that, right? But it's
Hmm.
actually it's just a guy with bad luck, right? It's just a guy who's has good intentions but just can't seem to follow through, or or get what he's after. So ठीक है, and that's an interesting character to play.
Hmm.
So
I mean, I've seen this actor, the police, the SHO actor, and he's a very good actor,
ah
right? And I like the whole conversation where he's like, you can't ask me to do stuff to him, ultimately I'm responsible.
yeah,
So, I felt that the whole thing, yeah, you're partly right, but it gave us like they finally got to know where Batish is, right? So
yeah,
they know
for
that
the
he's
first
in,
time.
yeah, they
Oh,
heard him and they're like, oh God, we found
yeah,
Batish.
for
So
the
I
first
think
time, because abhi tak they were working on the back of
a
like
hunch.
tips, a hunch
Yeah,
कि वो उधर गया होगा
exactly.
इधर गया होगा. um
Hmm.
but as always uski I thought it was very nicely done. Like शुरू में he's so sure कि वो गाड़ी की पिछली सीट पर है, then he finds out that he's not there. Then they grab Faraz at least and and get that first part in. um
Hmm.
Faraz, I was very surprised. वो तो बिल्कुल ही पेट का हल्का निकला. मतलब
I
I was
like
like,
this. I like the saying. I've never heard this before. Pet ka halka.
that means that you
It's a,
can't keep,
I
like
understood
it's
that.
like इट्स लाइक उसने तुम्हारे पीछे अपने इतने पुराने दोस्त को कत्ल कर दिया, ठीक है, उसने काफी किया तुम्हारे लिए, और
Yeah,
तुम्हें ना एक
but I
आधा
mean,
घंटा।
has his wife and a child
या
versus a contract killer who got in touch with him
या
after 10 years and then he
या
ran off with him. And so,
या
priorities in life, right? Like,
Yeah, and yeah, the wife is pregnant and all of that as well. They didn't show us her face, which was funny. Like Shamaila का face नहीं दिखाया, सिर्फ उसकी voice सुनाई. I was just like,
उसको
where is
episode
my
को पैसे नहीं दिए
weekly?
इसलिए.
Yeah, I was like, where is my weekly dose of Shamaila? Like, तो like video call, voice note उसका बस record करवाया. But not fair
हाँ, हाँ.
to us Shamaila fans. But that was an interesting part.
आतिश से दोस्ती के चक्कर में अपनी और शुमाइला की जिंदगी बर्बाद ना करो.
And then obviously there was that Batish wala part where Batish is in the car asking
Hmm.
for Buggy's
Hmm.
backstory.
हाँ, and why do they mute it? And so we also now don't know what that one
Yeah,
story is. यार ये
हाँ भाई, अब सुकून से सुनो अपनी.
क्या था? एयरपॉड
yeah.
लगा लो, ये कर लो.
I wish I was hoping finally, because you remember there is that one gap in her story
Yeah,
on
with the
how she
mobile
ended
phone
up.
and the video and what happened in that house and all that. Yeah.
All of that. So like, uh, I thought finally we were gonna get, and maybe that's where my disappointment when शुरू में बात की थी ना also came from, because I thought finally we were gonna get Buggy's backstory now as well. So I was excited about that, but then they just didn't
But
share
then
it.
they want to keep certain things under wraps, right? They want to
Uh-huh.
keep certain things under wraps, which is what also I think the beauty of Farrar, I feel, is that it keeps you guessing and not
Yeah,
obvious. Your prediction is never totally right. In the
yeah,
sense, they always have this additional bit of mystery which they reveal, right?
yeah.
So I think that's very interesting. Like even in the beginning, Jaan, we were guessing and all, but most of the directionally they were
Hmm.
giving us the right in the teaser they would show, or in
Yeah, yeah.
Faraar ke teaser maybe also they kind of give us misleading
Ha,
hints, you know. So
ha.
I think that is also one interesting part about this show that they
Yeah.
keep you like engaged. कि अभी
You're on
उसका
your
क्या
toes.
हुआ था? I want to know, you know,
Ha,
and they're telling you on purpose.
ha.
तो फिर क्या ही तुम देखोगे, right?
Exactly. And I think for a story like this, like the fact that we don't know what's coming up is their strength.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's the entire story. कोई romance वगैरह वैसा तो कुछ है नहीं.
Hmm. Do you
कि
think it's going to take a social cause? Like, because when they reach that place, the Mame wali jaga, there are a lot of these young girls and, you know, people waiting to be transported.
आ जाओ आ जाओ.
Do you think there's something about human trafficking angle and then Batish and the girl, what's her name? Nazo,
Buggy. हाँ.
will try to kind of do something? Do you think he's gonna turn?
Oh, you mean
Do you
like a
think it's gonna
redemption
turn
arc
there?
for Batish?
Huh?
Like a redemption type arc for Batish, where he's now suddenly like, okay, oh, like I've done so much bad in my life and now I have to
I don't think
do
he'll
this.
do it with that realization because you
Ha,
know he does respect women, right? He doesn't.
yeah,
It's not like he'll
ha,
want young girls to be sold off or whatever. So I think
yeah,
that might be one angle they might explore, right?
हाँ हो सकता है. The other
Also,
thing is like like I have no idea at the moment कि और कितने episodes रह गए हैं. This was 22
ah,
I think, with one episode a week. I don't know, like if that angle is also there, then we need at least like 3 or 4 episodes to
30
more
तो
to.
हो गए ना इसमें 30 तो हो गए ना अभी
You
तो
think
स्टोरी
eight
बाकी है.
more? You think
I
eight
think
more
there is
episodes?
enough story left
हाँ
because the Lahore
हाँ.
wala brother is still to now get to
वो आ गया
whoever.
ना. हाँ वो आ
But
गया.
he needs to now follow Nazo. Then
Yeah,
those two, Babrik and his wife, need to get onto the van and get to wherever.
yeah.
Then these people have to follow. There is enough to do.
हाँ.
I
Let's
think
see.
there's
I
going to be
mean,
at least
हाँ,
30 episodes. Pata nahi, I don't know. I'm not Googled to check how many
हाँ,
are there. But
yeah. Because then again, I think you may be right, because वो जो camp वाला है ना, मामा वो जो था, जो मतलब who runs
yeah,
that
he is
camp.
like a creep, right?
Yeah, but he's also a famous actor. Now he's also somebody
Ah,
that
Yeah.
So I'm just guessing. I would just assume that, they have paid all of these very big names to
Hmm.
not just do like, Dodo Singh cameos. So
I
I
think
want
he
to
is like
believe.
not a good guy, right? Because he agrees to kill Babrik for
Is he the
he's
same
the
guy?
same
No, no,
guy
no.
his
It's
uncle talks
that
to.
that other actor was different. Who Babrik was speaking to. That actor
No,
was
no, no,
different.
no. But when originally Babrik's Kaka calls him and says, I'm going to send a guy, you kill him. He's the guy he calls.
He's the guy he calls.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I was remembering that other guy, the second guy he keeps calling the Kaka then in the middle, because there is another guy that he calls and says कि पेशावर में मिलवा दो, मैं भिजवा दो, मैं रिसीव कर लेता हूँ ये वो the लंबे
Maybe we
बाल.
should go back and check and then put in the comment because
हाँ,
I have a feeling it's this guy.
yeah, I have a feeling it's the different guy, but I'll check and put it in the comments and then pin it so that people can
Yeah.
can see which one it is.
So I feel
But
he
this,
might have like this whole trafficking racket going on. And I feel
huh,
what will happen is Batish will try to kind of get those people out from there. And then
yeah,
they might meet Mohsin and what's his name?
fussy,
Fasi, while they're getting all these people out.
huh,
And then that might be his kind of
yeah,
redemption.
and
Okay,
also,
you want
huh,
to arrest me, but get these people to safety first and kind of get
actually,
all
yeah,
of them back to safety,
huh,
back to Karachi. I
I
think
would.
that might be a way
I
to
would
get
like
all.
to see that story. Yeah, I would like to see that story. I'd like to see that story, and I would like to see how this top player, so like the DPO, as you mentioned last week, that you think that he's also involved, that
हाँ,
Azam Shah, Azam Bhai, वो जो QIP का head
Shah
है, Azam
Azam,
Bhai, हाँ,
Shah
मतलब
Azam.
that Azam Bhai, that guy, the DPO, and if this guy, because obviously मिले तो सारे होते हैं ना at some level. So I would like to
Hmm.
see कि if there is that layer also that is interacting with each other.
I don't know. That I think I'm not far reaching that much.
हाँ, हाँ,
I'm just hoping that I think this might be an interesting thing where you are actually addressing a social issue. Because see, this
हाँ.
writer also is not just a writer who's going to write something,
That is
because
true. हाँ,
Tanman Neil O'Neill and stuff. So I
हाँ.
just was thinking there might be a trafficking, human trafficking angle, which they might
हो सकता
explore
है.
to get all of them then redeem Batish, get Nazo back to Karachi under protection, get all that kind of
Yeah,
covered up. And that will
हाँ.
take 8 episodes, right?
Okay. If it's going down like that route and they're showing us all of these different storylines resolving, then yeah, okay, I can understand eight
I don't know. I,
episodes.
I feel it might be
Hmm.
because the way, they show the walking through that whole
हाँ.
camp and he's looking at all the
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and they do see young girls and
हाँ.
kids. So,
Yeah. Well, there was a reason. There must be a reason to show that visual. The other things, there were two other things that I really liked about um, this episode, but also I think generally about Faraar, it's fair to say. One, that there are so many different locations that they have shot at, right? So
yeah.
even just say I was looking at, that toilets that Shakur stops at the beginning.
Huh. The
You know,
petrol pump.
yeah, and side note, but how apt was it that he was fixing his hair when he was leaving? That's such a Shakur thing to
Yeah,
do,
that's such a natural thing
right?
to do, right? Yeah,
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 it
yeah.
was. I really like that small touch, but that is actually on the way from Islamabad to Lahore. That those toilets, like so
How do you know it's that toilet?
no, but those same. So there is this company that has these toilets on the motorway,
Okay,
and
I was like,
so
how
like
do you
that's
know?
how I know. No, not that specific men's toilet. I haven't been inside, I promise.
So
um,
is this Jalandhar? No, no. What is it?
it was
Jandiala. Is it
Chandiala.
between Islamabad and
It's
Lahore?
it's in
On the
Punjab
map.
somewhere, right? So it's in Punjab. So motorway पे Punjab से Lahore आने के लिए you have these toilets, whatever. So like such realistic places that they have shot at. Then there was
हाँ,
another sequence where they have arrested Shakur, and they're taking him in the police jeep, ठीक है? और
yeah,
उसकी जो पिछली वाली गाड़ी है वहां से you are seeing the visual, and उस
yeah,
गाड़ी की light is lighting up the आगे
yeah.
वाली
The
van.
Toka. Yeah. I mean, I
So
love the way the it's shot. Even the whole
yeah,
thing when they get out of the car, they wait for Shakura to go to the bathroom, they
exactly.
follow him.
Ha,
So I think the
ha,
direction or whoever's the camera work, as I
ha.
said, I think before also we mentioned the camera work is very clean
Yeah, very
in
clean,
this.
and also the direction. So there are two directors. There's Musaddiq Malik and there's Syed Wajahat, who have
Huh.
co-directed it. So now they haven't specified which part has been directed by whom. But again, like they have done a really good job because इतनी सारी
Yeah.
stories को, इतनी सारी locations को manage करना, and
Hmm.
there is that kind of consistency in the quality of what you're seeing, quality of the
Right.
visuals.
Right.
Uh,
I think though it has improved. Like I think in the
yeah,
beginning there was a bit of like we were not sure if
ha,
someone is not speaking to the other person
yeah,
in that duo, but I think now it
ha.
seems like the writer and the two directors are all on the same
On the
page.
same page,
Yeah.
absolutely. So those were like my thoughts on Faraar for this week. Did you want to add anything else?
No, as I said, I think I continue to enjoy the episode. I didn't
Hmm.
feel like, anything I had to fast forward. What only was a bit confusing, they showed those two men in the car, the QIP people, but we were not sure where they were. They just showed them on the
Ha,
highway, but that was it.
ha.
There was nothing where
Yeah,
they are. So I would
exactly.
maybe come now. But yeah, I mean, I want to know what happens next. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah,
very interesting so far. I'm keen to know which direction they take it now.
yeah, yeah. Because so far they have surprised us every time.
Yeah, yeah.
So a good
I'll
episode of
wait to see
Faraar.
my prediction. How much of my predictions? Like
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
not been bad so far. So I'm like, ठीक है, देखते हैं.
yeah. Let's see. Um,
Hmm.
moving on to the two episodes of Qarz Jaan.
Yes.
Do you have any overarching thoughts about the two episodes before we get into like a breakdown?
I was very emotional in these two
Okay.
episodes. Yeah,
Yeah.
for me it was it did hit a spot. I mean, of course, I have comments on stuff, but I think over I felt the pain.
I would completely echo that. For me, it was a very intense two episodes. Lots of very difficult conversations and scenes.
Hmm.
The only thing, and I'll
Very
speak about this.
interesting scenes, though.
Huh,
Very
very interesting.
interesting observations and reactions. A few very interesting reactions, which
Okay,
I
so
didn't
so
expect.
let's so let's start off with those. But before you get into those, the only thing I'm struggling with now is I thought there were only 4 or 6 more episodes to go, which
Hmm.
means that we now either have, I think max we have 4 more to go,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
I wouldn't like it to be a rushed ending, given
Hmm.
that Karze Jaan usually shows us like come time in two whole episodes. So like it's
Hmm.
usually like दो तीन दिनों की story that we see. So I don't know if 4 episodes is enough
Hmm.
from where I am seeing the story right now to
Hmm.
wrap everything up nicely.
Hmm. You know what is very interesting though, which I realized only now,
Hmm.
and there's an inconsistency almost, is that when we see episodes, they're always in 2 days
Yeah.
or one day, right?
Yeah.
Even from a previous episode to the next episode, not a lot of time has passed.
Yeah.
But still, Beanish got pregnant, had a child. So at least 12 months have passed since her marriage, right?
Yeah.
So how did that happen? I was very
मुझे
confused.
हाँ I had that exact same thought because okay, let's talk about that quickly and
And I
then we'll
didn't
go into
notice it
your
while we were
reaction.
watching it.
So
But
I
now when I
yeah.
think about it, I was like, we've only seen one day to the next, one day to the next.
Yeah,
So when did
and
this
it
all?
doesn't seem like so she got married क्या कहते हैं Beanish got married ठीक है and then she was pregnant at Bisma's wedding. We were given that much information ठीक है.
Hmm.
Now Beanish की शादी पे Asim and Burhan वगैरह had already moved in next door,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
now they were already moved in for a substantial
Nine
amount of
months.
time.
Yeah,
कम से कम चलो 7 महीने भी कर लो आप ठीक है like
yeah.
she had an emergency C-section whatever ठीक है even if
Hmm.
you say कि चलो 8 महीने तो होंगे ना मतलब शादी से लेके like
Hmm.
till that point कि 8 महीने Asim and Burhan were there actually before even Bisma Shadi happened,
And 8
right?
mahine Faryal was living with her mother also, no?
Exactly, exactly. So even longer than that, because वो तो बीनिश की शादी से भी पहले की आई हुई थी. So that way, like it does. I only realized that when I saw uh, the child, Benish's
2
child
महीने का
Hadi.
बच्चा ना?
पर वो 2 महीने का तो नहीं, वो तो साल का लग रहा था बेचारा बच्चा. वो तो मतलब अपनी गर्दन उठा के ऐसे, you know, वैसे था. And she clarifies कि वो 2 महीने का है बच्चा afterwards. पर चलो ठीक है, ओके, यू कांट शो न्यूबॉर्न, बट चलो उसके उसको इफ यू टेक इट इनटू अकाउंट, तो अब वो जो बुरहान वाला सीन था विद बीनिश, राइट, वेयर ही कन्फेस्ड हिज लव टू नशवा, कुछ उसी
Yeah.
दिन किया था ना उसने जाके गाड़ी में. तो अब उस
Yeah.
सीन को भी 2 महीने हो गए हैं, बिकॉज अब बच्चा
और
दो
वो
महीने का है.
और अम्मार की शादी का और नशा की शादी का तब से चल रहा है ना. It feels
हाँ,
like something is they botched up this timeline on one
दिस
side of the show.
प्रेगनेंसी,
This
हाँ
thing.
हाँ, आई
Yeah,
थिंक
the
ये जो बीनिश
pregnancy.
वाली चीज है ना, ये
हाँ.
बीनिश वाली चीज, because this whole pregnancy situation, I can understand they wanted to show a child in the equation and all of that, but maybe they just, thought कि people wouldn't really notice या क्या, but it was very glaring. Like it is very, like, it is
I
mind-boggling if you
know,
think
I
about it.
realized it actually when she was delivering, but then I didn't, because there's so much else happening that I didn't
Yeah,
clock on to it, or I didn't really
हाँ,
want to pay attention to it. But now it just feels, every episode we see 2 days, and
yeah,
suddenly 9 months, 10 months have passed. When did this happen? Like,
yeah.
when did the 10 months pass?
It's like everybody lives in one timeline, and then
And
Venus
she lives in another time
is like
zone.
another timeline altogether.
Yeah.
Coming to the, you said that there was some very strong scenes. Do you want to talk about a couple of scenes first, maybe, and then we can talk about the ones that we haven't spoken about, that we haven't covered, or do you want to go like maybe sequentially? How do you want to do it?
So I think we should go sequentially, because if I start talking about stuff I want to, we will be
Hmm.
skipping things
Okay.
and we
Ha.
might kind of preempt things. So
Okay.
I want to start. I'm happy they had that conversation with Burhan and Nashwa in the car, where he tells her how didn't make sense for her to do what she did, because we had the same reaction, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you can't just take him to the rehab. And he's like, you can't do
Yeah.
that. And then
Yeah.
first she says, none of your business. And then she's like, you're right. Which, so that I think was a good conversation, because he's like, you need to be a bit more mature about things
Hmm.
like this. You can't expect him to just change.
यूजलेस एक्सरसाइज है, आप अपने आप को थका रही हैं और कुछ नहीं.
It's none of your business.
Exactly.
Overnight. And in that scene, both scenes, Nashwa and Burhan, I felt like she was a bit. I understand she's trying to make a boundary. Okay,
Hmm.
you stay
Hmm.
on that side of the boundary, I stay here.
Hmm.
But
Ha.
there's a better way of doing it. Like, I felt like she was too curt,
Yeah. I was
especially
gonna say
on
the
the
same word.
phone, when he
But
calls her
that,
and says,
ha, that's
"You're with
later. But
Dinesh."
ha, I have thoughts about that one. So like, if for that first scene between Burhan and Nashwa, important scene, and yeah, I could almost like sense that something had shifted between the two by that. I don't know if
Yeah, I
you
mean,
noticed
she's
it as
trying
well.
to push him
Ha,
away, but it almost
yeah,
feels like she doesn't like him. Like,
yeah,
it's different to be like, you know what? I understand why you want to show concern, and look, now we just need to kind of, you need to, we need
hmm,
to keep that boundary, and thank you, but no thank you. But in the second scene, it's almost like, like you, no, and the car only, you think you know me, but you don't know me, and all these, like, very this is the first time there was a conversation where I couldn't follow the conversation
yeah,
on Nashwa's part. Like, normally they have very direct
yeah.
conversations which we follow. This time I genuinely didn't understand when she said that you think you know me but you don't know me, and whatever, whatever. What was
Hmm.
she trying to get to? I didn't understand.
I felt a shift in a way where, usually, even when they've had conversations which are unpleasant, there has been that underlying emotion, ke, I know you care for me, I care for you, but we're not going to go there. And
Yeah.
so we are sticking to, like to like a more to not going into those topics and all of that, right?
Right,
This time in the
right.
car, I felt like that warmth was lacking from Nashwa's side.
But I
Huh.
just felt that was a bit confusing. I'm not saying it was wrong or right. I didn't understand what she
Huh.
was saying in
Yeah.
that scene. And then I think the scene with Ammar
This is the
goes,
first scene with Ammar and Asad on the
the first
on
scene where
the
he's
higher floor.
driving to that. In that scene, you can see he is fresh as an actor when he's driving to the, because I know what he's trying. This is the emotion I was talking about. He should have emoted driving off from Nashwa as well, but it's not coming across. You know that you've seen many people in the past in other movies or TV shows when they are angry or they are annoyed, how they drive and how they honk and
Hmm.
how. But I guess it was not either the editing of that scene or the way he was acting. I didn't feel that. It felt forced. It almost felt
Hmm.
forced, like I have to be angry. It felt forced. It didn't feel
Okay.
natural.
Huh.
And then even in the confrontation with Asad, I think they wanted to kill Asad, right? That's why it happened. It almost felt like Asad was asking for it. Like anyone, if I was Asad, right, I would be like, it's okay. I'll tell my guys to go away and then handle the situation later. Call the father and say, what is this? This is my job. I'm doing it. Could have
Hmm.
calmed Ammar down in that
Hmm.
moment
Yeah.
and said, हाँ हाँ ठीक है तुम गन रख दो नीचे. I'll tell my men to back off, you know,
Huh.
and then had a separate call with Bakhtiar and said, what is going on? You know,
Hmm.
that
I
I felt
yeah.
like he
For
almost knew that
huh.
this guy's going to shoot, but he's not telling
Yeah.
him something to just diffuse the situation.
Yeah. When I was watching that scene though, right, there was no point where I think forget Asad, but nobody would thought in family as well that he would actually pull the trigger. That this guy, Ammar, would actually pull the trigger, right? Because Asad obviously, like he know एक रिश्ता भी तो है उन दोनों का, ठीक है? It's not, and he's probably not seen him in this light before. Like he's heard of it. Like when the police came to arrest him, वो असद की शादी थी. असद ने तब भी concerns raise किए थे, all of that. So I was
Mm.
thinking कि Asad is trying to calm him down when he said कि मैं और बीनिश आएंगे, हम लोग आ रहे हैं तुम्हारे घर, बैठ के बात करते हैं, give me some time. I thought Ammar in that scene was like, and again, I don't know if it's the acting or if the way it was written, but it was almost like this guy was just like there was just something over, like he was overcome with something else altogether. Like the way he
Yeah, yeah,
started.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
हाँ
yeah,
मतलब एक
yeah,
उसके ऊपर ना इससे होता है ना, एक भूत तारी हुआ था, वैसे हुआ था because it was very
yeah.
like he उसने आगे से कोई मतलब he wasn't even responding to, like say for example अगर असद कह रहा है कि हम तुम्हारे घर आएंगे, Ammar's dialogue to him wasn't like कि नहीं मुझे अभी बात करनी है. It was like मैं कह रहा हूँ, like it was just like like एक पागलपन की वो जो एक होती है ना कि
Yeah, I agree.
वो
No, Asad! Asad, fight!
I
ताली
think,
हुई
see,
थी.
I think that
हाँ.
scene where he meets Asad, right? He did well because you almost feel like he is, as you mentioned very rightly, that something has switched off in his brain.
Yeah.
He wants to kill the guy. It's
हाँ.
almost like do or die, do or die, do or die. If I kill him, I'll win. I'll kill him, I'll win. That's basically
Yeah.
what's going on in his head. So he's not going to listen to reason. You can't reason
Yeah,
with him at
there
that
was
point.
no reasoning with him at
There's
that
no
point, and
reasoning
even
there.
जब उसकी काउंटडाउन चल रही थी, तो अभी वो 3 4 5 अभी वो आ रहा था तो बीनिश की कॉल आना शुरू हो गई.
Huh.
Asad for 2 seconds switched off from Ammar and like was looking at his phone. When
Huh.
Ammar didn't even clock, like okay,
Yeah.
you're giving a countdown to somebody, your sister is calling him, like there is no normalcy in that scene. There's
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
as
He
you
went a
rightly said,
bit
there's no
insane
reason.
in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
to do it and then to pick up the phone वो video call करना Binish के साथ. Like, he switched it to a video call, showed him the body also. I thought the Ammar that you are showing us, and again, like there was some confusion that I had because the Ammar that you have shown us till now, you have shown us, हमने ये last time भी बात की थी कि outside is different to inside Ammar, at home Ammar, ठीक है वो जैसा भी है but वो अपनी माँ का फिर भी माथा चूमता है. For this to go from like from like 50 to 250 all of a sudden for
So
me
look, look,
was
look. So I want to say something here. So look,
huh
I actually can. I was okay. I actually bought it. Okay. So if you ignore the
okay
acting and you say, okay,
huh
he's driving in fury and with a purpose, okay, I'm going to show my father that I can solve a problem, right? He's gone basically with that intention. I'm going to solve
yeah
this problem one way or another, kill him
yeah
or solve it, right? So that's what's driving him going, and all that insults are playing in his head, yeah, all the time. Fine, he reached there and he's basically insanity, right? It's insanity where he's like, I don't care, I just don't care,
yeah
I have to
yeah
prove myself, I'm
huh
going to kill you, you stop or
huh
kill you, stop, kill you, right?
yeah
Till the point he killed him. Now I was fine
huh
that he pulled the trigger because he was
yeah
insane. But what I had assumed would happen next, the moment he killed him, he'll suddenly snap out of that and
exactly
be like, oh my god, what have I done? But
yeah
to then be like, oh, I killed him. Now I'm going to take the phone. Now I'm going to call. That for me was okay. Now I don't understand because that
yeah
almost feels like meditative, like premeditated murder. When you kill someone, you take a selfie and all, that's actually intentional.
yeah
Then it
like he
was like,
doesn't
I thought you were overcome with something. So you pull the trigger, but then you need to get out of your shock the moment you kill him, right?
yeah yeah
That is where
yeah
I was a bit confused.
I was also I had the exact same thought. I said the moment he has shot him, now he's gonna start panicking and be like, कि ये मैंने क्या कर दिया, ये मैंने क्या कर दिया,
Correct.
असद उठो
And
Venus.
he's
And
going
when
to
he
be
picks
like
up the
this.
phone,
And
exactly, like his scenes where he get like when he is high and he starts like going
yeah,
into that fit, जैसे वो पहले shower में चला गया था and all that. So I thought that part was coming, and then he will pick up the phone to Binish and say, Binish, मुझसे ये क्या हो गया, ये क्या हो गया.
I
I
almost thought
didn't
he will
mean to.
not pick up the phone. He'll almost look at the
Yeah,
phone, throw it, and run off. You know,
yeah, or
like because
or
he
try and
doesn't know
harm
what happened.
himself. उस तरह से I thought.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Also, the other thing that I thought was a bit weird was that okay, this is like an execution thing, but um, you showed this building is full of police officers, right, and government officials and
where are
everybody.
they?
Matlab, like there are people on the floor below and on the floor below. Like it's not like everybody is downstairs on the ground, right? चार मंजिलों की building है, people are everywhere. Gunshot hoti hai, you show the reaction of the downstairs, looking up, and there's a whole time for Ammar to bleed to death, and then for Ammar to show that reaction to Beenish, to to call Beenish, have that conversation, sit down.
I couldn't understand why they should have, if they wanted us to have some sympathy for Ammar,
How?
then they
Yeah,
should have let him not make that phone call, because that phone
yeah,
call literally proved that he wanted to kill him and be
yeah,
proud of the fact that he killed him. It wasn't
yeah,
done out of some sudden anger or the sudden need to prove
yeah,
himself, and like, or that. So it just became a bit like, this was this, and it's your sister you're calling to show your sister's husband, like this is
yeah.
like pure
You
evil.
can't.
It's not even
This is
crazy.
evil. Yeah, it's evil. It's and all the backstory that you had given us about neglect and comparison as a child and father being a certain way and all of those things. In that moment, I was like, no, this is like all you can go through all of that in life and not be pure evil like he is right now.
That all could
That
explain the pulling of the trigger, but not what happened
exactly.
after. For me, that after bit was just, I was like, what is, why are they doing this?
You know what it reminded me of, and it was it's a thing, and that's why I was like one of the reasons I was so like emotionally like intense for me. There was murder that happened in Islamabad, maybe like 4-ish years ago. There was this guy called Zahir Jafar who killed his girlfriend or ex, like somebody who he was seeing, and she was trying to break up with him, and he killed her. And still his parents were trying to protect him. And this is what I was like when I saw this Ammar thing, I was just like, it took me back to that.
So yeah, that for me was a bit confusing. Like not confusing, it was
Yeah,
almost like, do you want us to sympathize with him, or are you still expecting us to sympathize with him? Like this is
yeah,
not. I would have sympathized with him if he would have shown instant remorse or instant shock or instant some reaction.
yeah,
But remorse 2 days later just because you're in jail was also not
yeah.
acceptable.
Actually, he
So
didn't have any dialogue after that in the two episodes.
yeah, but we
Ammar,
can talk
after that
about
first,
that. We can talk
yeah,
about that later.
huh,
What was very interesting for me now was, obviously I expected something like that, but what was very
yeah,
interesting is the Bakhtiar's reaction, where he starts crying, right? In that car, where he's just like, what
mm,
happened? And he's now
yeah,
thinking, what happened to my child, right?
yeah,
Which is not something we've ever seen him, an emotion he has had at any point in time. When Binish got married, when she was pregnant, when she had a child, we've never seen him any time be emotionally attached to her. But now this
mm,
happened, that scene in the car, where he's driving, he stops the car and he wipes his tears and he calls his mother
breaks
first and
down.
says, I'll come home and tell you what happened. I felt like this was the moment I would have not expected. This I would have not expected. I expected
Huh,
anger. I expected some remorse. Okay, I shouldn't have pushed him and whatever. But I didn't expect this emotion.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what
No,
you
huh,
expect him to be.
yeah. I was not. I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I thought that it was, that it was very nicely done. It was very well done, that scene by Bakhtiar, by
Mm,
Deepak Parvani, the actor.
mm.
Um, for me, like that was like it was almost good to see him feel some kind of emotion as well.
The fact that he's sitting in that car and crying for his daughter, I thought was,
Yeah,
I think, and he was crying for his daughter. He was not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
crying
He
for
was
Ammar first.
absolutely.
Then, of course, he goes home, and the dadi. I mean, I don't know what shakes that woman. I just don't know what shakes the woman. And I think, but you see the contrast in her thinking, right? She's like, Beenish is lost her husband. ठीक है, मैंने भी, I have also dealt with this, I have
Making
also
it
done
about
this.
herself. Yeah,
And she will manage and, but you worry about Ammar. I'm like,
बेटे मौत ने तो अपने वक्त पर आना है तुम जिंदा लोगों की फिक्र करो अम्मार मौके पर गिरफ्तार हुआ है
like, where are you? Like, this is basically that is, you can understand this dadi is all about the son, the heir, and the women. Even though she's a woman, she's
yeah,
gone through it, but she has no sympathy for another woman going through the same
yeah.
thing. Like, which for me is like so just it's just like
It was like, yeah, it was unbelievable. Like that Dadi's reaction for me as well. Like I had the same feeling. I was like, is she like not human? Like how, like she's so inside her own head. Like there's only one victim in the world, that's her, right?
yeah,
Like she like the fact that she made that about herself, right? Um, and till the very end, she doesn't, like, it's not, you can see Bakhtiar,
wavering.
the wavering, exactly, breaking,
Yeah,
wavering. You can see, like, like he's registering things. The dadi is like, I have another scene about the dadi as well, where I was just like, I wanted to like break into the screen and like punch her, or like
yeah.
but kudos to the actor, obviously. um She's just like, oh
No,
my God, I
she's
hate
not
her so much.
unflinching, yeah. I was just so shocked at that lady that I just could understand. But I loved the way they've dealt with the emotions, right? Where Bakhtiar feels regret, remorse, like not remorse, sorry, he feels sad for his daughter. He feels the pain that his daughter is going through. Then he sees his helplessness because he goes to the jail, right? When he goes to jail and he talks to Amma, he's like, "Tell me anything that I can do to save you, one
Yeah,
thing." And because
yeah,
he's like helpless, he's like,
कोई तो पॉइंट होगा कि तुम्हें छुड़ा सके.
"What do I do to help my son?"
yeah,
Yeah, there's nothing he can do. And you can see the helplessness there. But
yeah. And
then
he breaks down again.
he breaks
Like,
down again. And then in the lawyer's office, he's just acting very strong. And it's like, you need to solve this problem. But
attack
inside,
is a,
he's dying
like he,
inside, right?
yeah,
Like,
he's dying inside. Even in the jail scene, he starts off with like, in his strong like thing,
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
whatever he says to Ammar, and then Ammar is like Ammar ki matlab us scene mein I liked his acting because
Yeah, he
that was
acted
the
well
one
there.
where, yeah, the Nameer Khan ka uska mujhe acha laga tha because initially like you're just like okay, he's not like he's almost in a way pleased that he has broken his father that way. Like मुझे वो feeling आई उस scene में जो पहला वाला part था ना where he doesn't want to be saved. I don't think he wants to be saved from prison or any of those things at this point. He has just like for me, I thought Nameer has kind of he knows what he has done by that point, ठीक है, and he can see the reaction that it has had on his father, and that for him is because he initially he smiles when the father is breaking down, like there's that not smile but there is that expression on his face.
But I think
Yeah,
I felt like he was in a daze almost, like, and then suddenly he sees his father there. It registers. By the time it registers, his father's gone. So I felt it
yeah,
was almost like he was still in a state of not shock, I would say, but he wasn't willing to accept what has happened. I think he was not accepting what has happened. It almost
and what
happened
did
in the jail, and he's like, he's not accepted what has happened.
like
I
it
almost
hasn't
felt
hit him
like,
yet, okay. And what did you think of like just the follow-up scene from there where Nashwa goes to see him in prison?
yeah, yeah. I
Like,
think, I mean, the fact that they show him like all, I don't know, it was so confusing.
मुंह फेरने से सच नहीं छुप जाएगा. बड़ा जुल्म किया तुमने विनिश के साथ.
Because of the
yeah,
scene. But I think that was the problem because they showed us him calling his sister and laughing at his sister. Now to show him feel remorse and crying, almost I feel like I don't know. Either it's the psychological issue, or and you're trying to show that he got triggered for a very, very long time and was sane enough to call, and then all that, and then now he suddenly is remorseful.
yeah,
Fine, if you want to prove, go down that road, fine. But
huh,
I mean, he acted well. He didn't speak. He was crying, and he kind of
yeah,
absorbed it. But I don't know, right? I just felt it was trying to get us to feel bad for him.
yeah, exactly. So I for me, like Nashwa going to the jail, ठीक है, it didn't add any value to like I didn't see the point of why she had to go. She's just telling him like the same thing. How could you? Okay, so she's telling him how could you do this to your sister? You've not killed just Asad, but also Venetia's chance at life, Hadi's chance at life. All of those things she's telling him, right? And okay, you show him crying at that point in that instance, right? But exactly how what you were saying, why are you showing us that scene when you have shown us that other scene before? Like, how are we to get over that first scene when he's calling the sister and saying कि मैंने उसको मार दिया है? Like for me, it wasn't doing anything. It was just like confusing me. The topic of Nashwa, you know, so that first proper scene I think that we see of hers is um when she goes first to tell Beenish. Okay? After that
Mm.
Burhan Wali conversation, first she goes to
Yeah.
break the news to Beenish.
Mm.
Then second part is where she's spoken to Burhan and she is kind of blaming herself.
Yeah,
You
I didn't
know,
understand some of the words of Urdu in that. So
okay,
I
go
had to
on.
like listen to it 3, 4 times
Huh,
because she's like, she's almost saying that if I hadn't egged him on by taking him to the mental hospital, then he wouldn't
yeah,
have gone. Or a mental
yeah.
hospital, sorry, I'm sorry,
Rehab,
psychiatric or
rehab.
rehab.
Huh,
He wouldn't have gone off in a rage. And then she
yeah.
says something about Mary Ma. Why Kisas? Why is the murder a payment for Bisma's
So
happiness? That what was
So
the
basically, yeah, so basically what she's saying is कि मैंने मैंने जो कुर्बानी दी, that I agreed to marry him
yeah,
for my mother's happiness, right? Like I sacrificed my own happiness for my mother's happiness. I
yeah.
thought by doing that I could give my mother happiness and I could also fix Ammar, right? And him going ahead and killing Asad has basically like made all of that for nothing.
Oh, is that
Like
what it
she
means? Okay,
yeah, ending of that
okay,
scene was that
okay.
what she was saying was that I failed. I thought I could save you from becoming another Bakhtiyar Ahmad,
Hmm.
your father, but
Hmm.
I failed, even
Hmm.
though I paid for it. Like this
Yeah,
was
yeah.
something that I had. This was already the result of my sacrifice for my mother's happiness. And then she
Hmm.
kind of repeats that when she's talking to Beanish as well, where she says कि तुम और मैं कि तुम्हें और मुझे
Hmm.
ये जो कर्ज है of
हमें
our elder
उतारने हैं. We
generation
have to
हमें
pay for
उतारना
our
है
parents'
हाँ
mistakes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
exactly okay we will have to pay for their sins and how they have
Yeah.
been
I
so
mean, I think
I
there's so many
हाँ
conversations in in these 2 episodes, which are so
yeah
beautiful, right? Like, even if you take first of all, I must say, the actor who played Beanish,
Fajr
what
Sheikh
acting! Like, you've only seen her as a very happy, happy person, and the way like her acting was on point. Never I felt she went hysterical. Never I felt that I didn't believe that she had lost her husband. Like the entire scene where she comes home to her house and she's like, my son's gone, and she that whole conversation with Nashwa where she's going that
sitting
insanity and then sanity, the insanity and the sanity
yeah
was so well done. You could believe that she's grieving. You could believe this is grief, where she's
yeah
like, don't try to pacify me. Then she gets pacified. Then after 5 seconds again, she's like, no, 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 this cannot. So this is very
yeah
that scene for me was like so well done. Like she acted beautiful. I think she took the cake. You have to
yeah
say what
absolutely
stand out. Like she just took the cake. Like I couldn't get my eyes off of her.
yeah
Like Yumna is such a strong actor, but honestly, I could only see Beanish. I could
yeah
not
in
see
that scene
Nashra at
and
all.
the way she is especially when she sat on the bed and talking to her the way she
Yeah.
talks about the
The way
child
she's
and
going up
like
and
her
down,
yeah
back and
like
forward,
it's
and
just it was pitch perfect like I mean
yeah,
she could not have done it more perfectly Fajr Sheikh
correct.
like and especially because we have seen and like we've seen Beanish always being happy always being a little bit
Yeah,
more removed from this family's politics a bit more aloof
yeah.
a bit keeping her happiness protected all of that I just even when she says कि मेरे साथ क्यों हो रहा है मैंने तो कभी किसी
मैंने
का
तो
बुरा
किसी का
नहीं
कुछ
किया
बिगाड़ा नहीं. Yeah, yeah.
then how she and it was just so beautiful how she removes Nashwa's hands to say कि no I
I
don't
don't
want
want
to
to
be the
pay
one
for other people's
हाँ
mistakes. Yeah.
नशवा मुझे किसी का कसूर नहीं मुझे मुझे किसी का कर्ज नहीं उतारना मुझे किसी का गुनाह नहीं उतारना मैंने क्या किया था नशवा मेरा बच्चा छोटा
कि
Yeah,
मैं क्यों करूं
yeah.
uff Allah it was just oh that scene like what that actress did in that scene was
Oh
just
my God, like she really, really, I was like really hard. Like my mouth,
yeah
like it was constricted. I was not, I don't cry easily,
yeah
unfortunately. So
yeah
but I couldn't breathe. I was just
yeah
like, here.
oh
It
yeah
was really, really heartbreaking. So
yeah.
then
And
I
I
wanted,
think
yeah.
yeah go on Go on, go
So
on.
obviously I liked also the fact that obviously you see Bakhtiar thinking, right? Where even that whole conversation he has with the mother and says, yeah, but that was Bisma and this is Beanish. This is my daughter. So they
Yeah,
do clock on to the fact that did the same thing to Bisma, but
yeah,
it cannot happen to my daughter. It was Bisma was
yeah,
okay. It can't happen to my
yeah.
daughter.
In in
And
in
then
that scene, go on.
and then if you take the continuation of that conversation and then you say Bisma comes into the room at a very timely manner and she says, you need to go and talk to them. You can't repeat the cycle. And then the
Yeah,
dadi's like, what do you mean? And she's like, I don't
yeah,
mean anything. Just go and solve this problem. And
yeah,
then Sidra in the end, she is like, I don't care anymore. You guys have been
yeah,
playing around with people's lives. And now see, you
yeah.
have to bear the you have to give the
The
kisas.
bro-
Like that's
yeah,
basically you have to pay
huh,
for what you've done to other
yeah,
people and
yeah.
broke.
I I thought that Bisma as well. Like, Bisma had two scenes. One was with Burhan. I'll
Yes,
come to
yeah.
that Burhan wala scene in a second.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then that scene where she enters, that room, and you can tell, like, like how much, kitna kuch hoga uske dil mein to say at that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
To say that, this is what you did to me. This is, what my life was. And yet she didn't have that hate in her. She was saying, don't overreact. Don't be arrogant in this point.
yeah,
Do it for your daughter. Go to them, ask them, talk to them.
yeah.
And Bakhtiar does register that. The Dadi still
Correct.
doesn't. The Dadi
No.
doesn't, but Bakhtiar does, like, it does go into his head. Similarly, when she comes home, when Beanish comes home, right?
Hmm.
She, like the Dadi's, like, did you see Dadi's comments about Parda and
I
कि
was
तुम
like,
वो,
dude,
I was just
can't
like,
you see she's in
I
pain?
have,
Like, what is
I
wrong with
have
you?
rarely ever, but Mariam, like, and I want to ask our audiences as well, like, do you think people like this exist? People who have this much, like, the hypocrisy of that woman, right? Like, it just, yeah, I hate her with all my heart. Like, that
I
character,
like.
like,
I mean, I was just like, aren't you concerned for her health, her
yeah,
safety, her good? Like,
yeah,
what you are only
yeah,
concerned about this rule and that rule, but none of the rules
yeah,
apply to you. Like, it
yeah.
applies to the
These
world.
are these are the kind of people who put people off of religion as well. Like, I know that that's a completely separate conversation in, like,
Hmm.
maybe not for, like, this one, but, like, this is exactly the kind of people, because people turn around and say, okay, like, if religious people or people who are close to, God are like this, then we don't want to be like them.
No, no, no. Who claim to be, not are
Claim to be.
close. Claim to
Ha,
be. I think
who
that's a
claim
very
to be or
important thing,
pretend.
right?
Yeah,
Claim to be.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I was just like, I couldn't believe her. Like, I was like, ऐसे लोग और होते हैं, actually होते हैं. I'm answering my own question, but ऐसे लोग भी
Okay.
होते हैं that, that have
Hmm.
so much vitriol in them कि उनका there is just no. And now coming to that scene, वो जो सिद्रा वाला था at the end, where
Hmm.
Bakhtiar comes back in, and Sidra finally, they say that a woman may not be strong, but a mother is always.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, all her life she has seen these two people scheme and, put her
Hmm.
down and, say all of those things, and then it
Hmm.
comes out,
But
and the
see the
way,
example she uses not a own. She says मैंने देखा है बिस्मा को रोते हुए और
yeah,
वो सब
yeah,
आपको अभी she has given you that बद्दुआ which is now
yeah,
coming into your daughter's life.
yeah,
She's like, I have
yeah,
watched her cry. I have watched her cry for
yeah,
her daughter. When you snatched her daughter away from her.
yeah,
And that Dadi
yeah,
is
and
just,
they, yeah, and they haven't shown us this part before. They haven't, like, they've alluded to
but
it,
Asim
but
does say, na, that when I
कि they
came, they
threatened
said,
her. They threatened her कि हम रख लेंगे या क्या.
hmm,
But that means कि they did actually do it. वो जो बिस्मा
yeah,
के जो सिद्रा कहती है कि मैंने उसको रोते हुए देखा है, टूटते हुए देखा है.
आपको याद है ना माँ जी जब बिस्मा की गोद से आपने नशवा को छीना था, कैसे बिलक बिलक के रो रही थी वो।
और मुझे ये था कि उसकी आह जो है, मतलब जो उसकी बद्दुआ है, वो किसी ना किसी दिन तो लगेगी ना,
आएगी, हाँ।
मतलब आएगी। आप जितना मर्जी नॉट दैट बिस्मा वाज गिविंग बददुआस टू द
स्पाइटफुल,
किड्स,
या
बट हाँ, बट एक आह होती है ना इंसान की, जब आप उसको एक ब्रिंक पे ले जाते हो, तो मतलब तो
no,
एक
but
एक
it's
वो भी
not
तो,
the person, right? If it's what
हाँ, इट्स
goes
नॉट
around comes
इंटेंशनल,
around,
हाँ,
right?
या
It's that is the
एब्सोल्युटली,
reality. And the thing was,
एब्सोल्युटली,
I really liked Bakhtiyar Builder's acting because you could
हाँ,
see he would go strong, then he would go soft.
या
He would go strong, then he would go soft, right?
या
And of course, the Dadi is this
या
constant character. She's not moving, but in the
शी
end,
जस्ट
when
लुक्स, या
Hidra yells at her, is when it kind of like registers to her.
for the
And
first time she can't make eye contact.
yeah, first time she's like, okay, this I can't. This is a fact. She can't shy away from a fact, right?
Yeah,
And then also throughout the dialogues between her and her son, कैसे लोग हैं, खानदानी, मुझे लगा खानदानी लोग हैं, मुझे लगा पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं, ऐसा करते हैं, वैसा करते हैं. And I'm just like, do you ever look at yourself in the mirror? Like, do you even realize what
imagine.
is this is like? But I mean, I think the way they crafted the story around
Hmm.
Beanish, of course, like using her as the subject to bring back everything that they've done to someone else was really beautiful. I didn't expect, of course, until last episode, the two episodes before,
Yeah,
I didn't expect this would where the direction it would go in. I thought they
yeah,
would be still on Maheen and all that. But
yeah.
this, and they say Baddua, they said Maheen ka na. Nashwa also tells
हाँ,
Ammar,
हाँ,
Maheen
माहिन का
mein Baddua
बदला,
deri hogi.
हाँ, कि उसने
Uh,
भी तो obviously, and I think like that is a victory for the director and for the writer, right?
hmm,
That they didn't let us on into this beanish thing at all.
hmm.
मतलब, she was that ray of sunshine, making encouraging Burhan to confess to Nashwa.
Yeah, yeah.
Shadi wale maybe she was trying to reason, all of that.
Hmm.
Like, which is why I think it has hit us so badly that it has
Of
happened to
course.
her
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how it has happened to her. Um, so yeah, and then the actress as well, like, well done. I mean,
Fantastic job.
like
Fantastic job.
honestly, like she owned the two episodes. One more angle that I didn't like was that Burhan's dialogues
Comment.
in or Burhan's comments in the two scenes after Asad's passing, right? So the first time that he calls up Nashwa, right, and says कि आप बीनिश के पास हैं, आपको you just it didn't I think there was something wrong with the dialogue as well. It didn't come across that he's actually really really only concerned for Nashwa, right? Like in a way he's like, आप मेरी बात ध्यान से सुनिएगा, आपको बुरी लगेगी, पर she may be you know she may blame you in this situation, और आपकी equation ऐसी है, और आप अमार की बीवी हैं, and all of those things, right? Now, from Burhan, somebody who was at the beginning of the episode, the first episode, telling Nashwa how it was, like not emotionally intelligent to take Ammar to the rehab center one day after Shadi, and, generally, like, Barrister Burhan, all of that. It didn't make sense for me. Like, those words coming out of his mouth didn't really make sense for me, because I was just like, there is another way of saying it. And most of all, like, like just 2 months ago now that we know, but in our heads, like in the last few episodes, he tells Beenish ke, तुमने जो मुझे भाई बुलाया है, तुमने जो मुझ पे इतबार किया है, मैं उसका मान रखूंगा. He,
Hmm.
puts his hand on her head.
Mhm,
आपने
mhm.
एक बंदी को बहन बनाया है in a way, like, you are kind of saying कि I'm going to protect you, I'm going to be there for you. Kind of making it that Beenish will now be, be wary of you, or, or like, she might blame you for the situation, so don't be there. I didn't, right?
I actually thought what will happen. To be honest,
Yeah,
after that conversation, why they had that conversation, I thought
yeah,
that Burhan will go to meet Beenish. I thought, and he will fight the case for Beanish, because that's,
Absolutely.
I thought that she will be like, "आप अम्मार को जेल में डालो, आप मेरा बेटा लेके आओ."
Yeah.
I thought he will take her side.
Yeah.
Obviously, now they're going to flip it, where Burhan will fight for Ammar and Nashwa will fight for Beanish, right? Because I think
That,
that's what
huh?
they're gonna
But Mariam, the thing is, they showed us that scene in the hospital. They showed us that camaraderie
do.
between
Now it doesn't make
Burhan and
sense.
Vinesh, right?
Yeah,
You got us so invested in that. For what?
yeah.
If this were the plan shuru se, right? Then you could have
Mm.
just shown another trigger. Then Asim could have told Burhan, "Ki, what are you doing, dude? Go and help. Go and confess to Nashwa." Or Bisma could have said it. Anybody could have said to Burhan, "Why show us that bond? कि वो उसको hospital में देखने जा रहा है, पूछ रहा है,
Because
कर
it
रहा है."
doesn't, I mean, Beanish is not going to hate, but how are you just going to
Yeah,
justify this to Beanish that you're going to fight for a case
yeah,
for someone who killed your husband? Like,
yeah. And
even
and
if it's
and
for Naswa, who cares?
and took your child away as well, right? In that sense,
Yeah,
because you're in.
yeah.
Okay, so that was the first part. Then the second thing that Burhan says to Bisma, and he does like kind of self regulate himself as soon as he has said it.
कल तक जो आप झेल रही थी वो आज बीनिश के हिस्से में आ गया। क्या कुदरत का निज़ाम।
Then Bisma is the one who turns around and says to him, कि मेरे लिए Bisma और Nashwa are the same. So जो मेरे साथ जुल्म हुआ है उसकी सजा either of my children, किसी भी बच्चे को मेरे मिले तो I don't want that. And then he says
Hmm.
कि sorry अगर आपको बुरा लगा, I didn't mean मेरे ऐसी जहन में आ गया तो मैंने बोल
Yeah,
दिया,
but I
right?
think that he
So,
genuinely didn't say it. I don't think he said it with
no,
any
he
kind
didn't
of
say it. Yeah.
agenda. I think it was
हाँ,
literally something like even we thought of it.
yeah,
Even
but
we,
instead of,
something is
yeah, exactly. That was the first thought that came to us, right? And throughout the
Hmm.
episode, it was there. But then, you're not. Burhan is a character that you have made us fall in love with by now, right? There's so many good things
Right,
about him, all of those things. Now you
right.
give him two dialogues, two scenes after Asad's death, right?
Yeah.
Both could have been done by somebody else or could have been done differently.
Hmm.
What you don't give us is a positive reinforcement. जो तुम कह रही थी, that would have been a beautiful scene where he goes to Binish and says, and Binish says to him, Burhan bhai, now, like, I
आप
said
मेरी
that
मदद
you are
करो.
my brother. हाँ, that आप मेरे भाई हो, you show me being a भाई and all of that thing. ठीक है?
Yeah,
आप उस कैरेक्टर को इतने से गंदा कर रहे हो कि आपने हमें दो चीजें दिखाई which are less than positive, right?
yeah.
और जो चीज अच्छी दिखानी चाहिए थी वो आपने दिखाई नहीं, ठीक है? और फिर आपने अब उसमें दिखाया जो टीजर है कि बख्तियार goes to him and says कि
Negotiating Nashwa's life again. Yeah.
exactly कि technically तो वो यही कह रहे हैं ना कि मैं नशवा को like Nashwa can take a divorce or leave Ammar obviously and then you can have her, ठीक है? And if Burhan, and now the thing is the actor Usama Khan, ठीक है? He shared something on his Insta story to the effect कि Burhan के लिए Nashwa is the only thing that is important, only person that is important. तो वो उसके लिए जो उसको सही लगेगा करेगा, ठीक है? और he shared that, which basically for me like was मेरे तो पता नहीं क्या हो गया, क्या कहते हैं when you are giving a sign that something is about to happen.
Premonition? No,
Premonition. Yeah,
preempting.
preempting. Yes. So he's preempting the fact. I thought he's already laying the groundwork for the fact
Yeah,
that,
but it is obvious
Burhan is
he's
going
going
to
to take that.
Yeah,
That's
but
for
now
sure.
you tell me, how does it, okay, so he will take that side. Nashwa and Binish are like this, so Binish will take the other side, right?
And no, and Nashwa is also very clear to Sidra कि इस बार she tells Sidra, right, कि आपको तो पता है कि बड़े अब्बू तो अम्मार को निकाल देंगे, लेकिन it is
हाँ,
important, तो अभी बीनिश का क्या? How does she get
हाँ,
justice?
yeah,
Right?
yeah, right?
So
And
she is not going to let this go.
yeah, so the only way Binish gets justice is if Ammar gets,
In jail.
his due, right? वो तो उसके in-laws ने भी कह दिया है, and
Yeah.
for all their power and influence, they couldn't get the child back. So Nashwa is going to take the opposite side of this case, right? Because she's going to say, कि नहीं, Ammar has to pay for this, and Burhan is going to take the other side. Now, you tell me, how does that make sense? Given what they have told us, everything about Burhan and Nashwa so far,
I
Nashwa
don't
wala
know.
part I understand. How does this Burhan angle make sense? Like, that he has taken this case, given his equation with everybody else, and given what you have told us about Burhan.
I don't know. I mean, I was expecting something else. Like as I told you, I was
हाँ,
expecting him to fight for Beenish and Ashwa to fight for Ammar because whatever she thinks he still can turn over a new leaf or whatever. But
yeah,
Nashwa can also not fight for Ammar because Beenish doesn't have her son, so that cannot
yeah,
happen. So I think they have
yeah.
to have it some way. I think what will happen in the end is that Ammar will fight. Sorry, what's his name? Burhan will fight
Burhan.
for Ammar, but Nashwa will win the case, and I don't know something. I don't know.
But okay, so even okay,
Honestly, I
so
don't
even
want to
if in
guess
this case,
what will happen,
huh?
but
Yeah, not to guess or
this
anything, but
situation, so this whole thing, this last two episodes, Ammar and Nashwa combination has been a bit off. So either they're trying to now just break that entirely, which also for me is a bit uncomfortable because they've shown they have a deep connection. It's not just superficial love, right? It's a deep connection.
Burhan and Nashwa.
Yeah, in the
You said
past.
Ammar and Nashwa. Huh, you said
No,
Ammar
no.
and Nashwa, sorry. Burhan and
Burhan
Nashwa,
and
okay.
Nashwa.
Yeah,
So
huh.
it can't just be ke abhi, they'll become enemies or whatever.
Yeah.
Burhan can justify, look, Burhan can justify later, "Ki, I did this all for you because you were in the situation, because he is that kind of
Hmm.
person. In his head, he's justified it that if Nashwa can get out of the situation and if I fight for Ammar, then fine. Later we can find some way to get Ammar help or whatever. And we don't know the rest of the conversation with Bakhtiar. We just heard the first thing in the teaser. Right?
Hmm.
We don't know what other he might have some conditions, asterisks apply. If I fight this
Hmm.
kid, Ammar gets out, then I need him to do treatment or I need him to go to rehab. He might have those things, right? Maybe. I don't know. I'm just making up
Yeah.
stuff. So it's all a bit odd, but
Yeah. For
it's
me,
all a bit
like, I'll just say one last thing. For me, like, even if in this situation, if Amar fights for Nashwa's case, he's
odd.
smart enough to know that there is no Nashwa and Burhan after this then.
Yes,
I and
yes.
I have a feeling now that there is no like end game is
There's no
they're gonna
Nashwa
leave it,
Burhan.
yeah, they're gonna leave it open ended, if anything.
Yeah.
Nashwa, I don't think Nashwa is going to end up with Burhan if this is what Burhan is doing.
Yeah, I think that duo will not happen. The only thing which will happen, the only end which is breaking this cycle. So Ammar goes to jail, or I don't. Ammar goes to jail, and then Dadi regrets and goes and apologize. All that will happen potentially. This cycle will break. That's what they are trying to do. How this will
Hmm.
break, who will win, who will lose, we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I really hope they don't like do a hack
They
job of
cannot
this
have a
now.
happily married Burhan Nashwa situation. That cannot happen. Either they just show like an open end where we don't know
Hmm.
what happens with them, but no one is, everyone is in like some stable situation. They'll have to show it that way.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I think if they show them together in the end, it'll
yeah.
be a bit odd.
But it could have been. I mean, if Burhan, okay, again, we're just like, assuming and all of that. So maybe we'll leave this for next time after we have seen the next two episodes as well. But yeah, I'll leave it to the fact that, right now I'm not happy with what direction they're taking this whole
Yeah,
period.
I would have liked some interaction with Burhan and
Beanish.
Beenish or that part because he
Yeah.
says to Bisma that I'll come with you, but we never
Yeah.
see him go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You know?
yeah, yeah. And I also found it very odd that Bakhtiar was like, yeah, Burhan, yes, get me a meeting with him. Like, I get his long-term planning problem. But the first reaction, would you think that he's the only lawyer in town who's a defense lawyer and can win a case? Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
think
felt a
what
bit
that the lawyer friend addresses. He says nobody will take your case because of social media ka pressure hai. Same thing happened with that, that other case that I was talking about. Nobody wanted to take that case because it was just, nobody,
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
wanted
Yeah.
to
Says then,
implicate them
so maybe the
reputationally, like,
Bakhtiyar was like, okay, I can force Burhan to take the case if I dangle
exactly.
the
He's the
carrot.
only one where he has a carrot to give.
He has some leverage, basically.
Exactly. That he's the only Burhan is the only one
Yeah.
that has some leverage. But
Very interesting.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know what'll happen. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I was
I think we
very,
have
very shaken by the last two episodes, especially
yeah.
because of the acting, Benish's acting.
Absolutely. No, a very good episode. Very good two episodes, but heavy. And as you can see, like, we've spoken for over an hour about Qarz Jaan. So we have really,
Even though we didn't
talked
have
about
memes
each.
tomorrow, but we've done
Yeah,
way
we've
more
done
time.
probably this is probably like our longest episode. But वही बात है कि this is something that is important to talk about. So many different issues as well that have come up. You let us know what your thoughts are about Qarz Jaan at the moment, and we will see you next time with a third drama to review as well, but also hopefully feeling a bit better about Qarz Jaan and where it's going.
Hmm.
On that note.
Thank you,
Sorry, I don't have
everyone.
anything more positive to add. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.